Our speaker is Patricia V. Hayes. She is an executive advisor and authentic networking strategist. She's going to be talking about virtual networking with confidence. She is a licensed attorney who serves as an executive advisor, career empowerment coach, and authentic networking strategist. She empowers professionals to up-level their careers during life transitions by creating personalized career plans and building strengthened professional networks. She is the owner of PVH Consulting Group, LLC, a strategy consulting and leadership development firm. Previously, she has served in senior leadership roles at the local, regional, and state levels, including being a senior advisor to a state senator, lieutenant governor, commissioner of education, and university system chancellor. So she's used to running with the big dogs. A passionate advocate and community leader, she has served on numerous community boards and committees, most recently as the immediate past chairs of the Community Advancement Network and the Greater Austin Black Chamber of Commerce. She graduated from Pepperdine University School of Law and the University of Texas at Austin. She is married with 2 children. I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear what she has to say. She has such an impressive resume. So let us give a warm welcome to Patricia V. Hayes.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh my gosh, how are you guys doing? So glad to be here with you today. Thank you so much for having me. Shannon is a very good convincer. And so I am glad to be here. And I've been with you all before, and I can't wait to be able to do it again in person. But so glad that you're joining here online, virtually, which is what we're talking about today. And so I don't know if any of you have been exposed to any of my work previously, but we all know that everything has shifted gravely in the last year and a half, and so many things have moved to being online, and it does look like that's going to be the case for some time to come, where there's going to be a hybrid method. Today do affect and address you as you're moving through this space online. But here's the good news, is you can use these techniques whether you're online or whether you're in person. Just adjust accordingly, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. So here's where we're going to start. I want you to think about 2 questions, and this is something that I do often because a lot of times people want to just get straight into strategy without thinking about and working through some of the mindset things that they have going on behind it. And so 2 questions for you starting off today that I hope you'll be able to answer before we're done, which is, first of all, what do you hope to get out of this session today? All right. Write that down if you're taking notes and be honest with yourself. And then secondly, what is your greatest networking concern or fear? All right. What is your greatest networking concern or fear? I want you to answer both of those things. That is for your use only. And if for some reason we don't address one of those questions or that issue, then hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end so that we can do a little bit of Q&A and resolve any of those questions. All right. Okay, so what does it mean to network with confidence? Like, we all know what we think it means to, to network, and that's a whole other thing, right? But you were talking about engaging with people for a specific purpose, normally around the, in the business capacity. But when you're talking about doing it with confidence, I had to start being really, kind of, 9th grade-ish and go, pull out some dictionary definitions so that I can make sure and really get it across the way that I want it to. And it's about this fact that it means that you feel empowered to take certain action. And that is so important, right? You want to make sure that you're empowered in what it is you're doing, and that you're giving, when you're using that power, that it's with authority, and that you're making someone or something stronger, more confident, especially in controlling their life and claiming their rights, right? So that's what we're talking about. You want to be able to engage with others with more power, and in a way that you can share that as you're moving along through the work that you're doing, and you can do it with authority. Now, When you are confident, here are a couple of things that happen. First of all, there is a feeling of self-assurance that's arising from your appreciation of your own abilities or qualities, right? You feel self-assured, you appreciate the things that you do and what you're engaged in. And then you also, again, this tie back to feeling empowered, that you can rely on what's going on around you to feed your circumstances and to address them, sufficiently, more than sufficiently, right? In a very abundant way. And you know how it is, regardless, let's not even take it into the networking realm. When we're confident about how we're interacting or what something that we're doing, there's enthusiasm, we're excited, maybe, we're happy, and that spills over in everything that we're doing and with the people that we're engaging with. That feeling that you have when you are confident doing your favorite hobby, engaging, watching your favorite, activity or whatever it may be, that's the feeling that we want you to have when you're networking. Now, here's the thing. I fully recognize that everyone does not really get into networking, that networking is this, horrible thing next to public speaking. I am well aware of the fact that it is the second least favorite skill development piece out there. But that's okay, because you can still do it when you're doing it authentically, when you're doing it and you're engaging in those activities that come natural to you, plus adding to it so that you can expand your comfort zone. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So here's the real question about why, which is why are we bothering to do this at all? Why? And here's the thing, because you have a problem. And that's a lot of times why people engage in networking. And it's not because it's some horrible thing or whatever, but there's an issue you need to have addressed. And the reality is that there's a solution to that problem. And the deal is that when you engage in this activity, when you look at your problem, which is, hey, I have an insufficient depth of professional relationships in order for me to get to the next level of what it is I want to do, whether it's, finding a new job, transitioning from one field to another, starting a new business. Your problem is you need more relationships in order to get there. The solution is that you can build out your network in a way that is so deep and wide so that it can address not only your current roles and your current needs, but also so that it will be there strong for you in the future. That's really the result that we want to achieve, is those long-lasting results so that you have a high-quality professional network that is sustainable and one that you can rely on for years. All right, one of my favorite quotes here is by Joe Garfinkel, and he says, by fostering and maintaining your diverse relationships, you raise others' awareness of your abilities. And when you really think about that, it's that piece of when you foster and maintain, you raise others' awareness. This is the piece that most people fail to remember. If you don't share, if you don't engage and work with others and just keep up with them, then they don't know what your issues or concerns are. They're not aware of what your abilities and skills are so that you can achieve that next level. One of my favorite stories is from years ago with one of my colleagues who we hadn't met in a while. And so he just jumped in, and he was still, under the impression that I was trying to go find, a new, executive level position. So he jumped in saying, hey, I heard about this. I think it would be great for you, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, well, wait a second. Actually, I've pivoted and I'm doing some things differently. And to which he immediately stopped and he's like, okay, tell me about Patricia 2.0. And I love that. And so I like to say I'm probably on Patricia 4.0, but that's the thing that you want to make sure is what version of you have you most recently shared with your network? Because when you haven't kept up, that affects our confidence, right? It affects our ability to interact. And we'll talk about that more in a second. And so it's okay. Acknowledge those missteps, acknowledge where you are, and then just, go with where you are now and move forward. You don't want to let that hamper. And I've gotten a little bit ahead of myself, but you don't want to let that hamper your forward movement. Okay. All right, so let's talk about building those relationships and what they're all about. It's not about those, business cards. Honestly, I think that's probably the best thing about the pandemic, from a relationship building piece, is like we're not having to exchange business cards with complete strangers and think that people are going to follow up on it, because most of the time people do not. That's a whole other conversation about, how to utilize those more strategically as we do start to re-engage with people. But it's really not about the business cards. It's about the conversations you're having with those people that you're exchanging cards with, and whether it's something that you want to further the conversations with. Okay. And that requires a big mindset shift, regardless of what it is that you're trying to do. So here's the thing. Networking is not a 4-letter word. I know there are people out there who think it is. It's not, I promise. All right. You don't have to be involved in the speed dating event. You don't have to do First Friday happy hours if you don't want to. And you don't have to, quote, make nice with perfect strangers. And I already talked about my feelings about the business cards. All of those things are tools, right? They're tools and or some strategies, but maybe not as comprehensive, which is why people feel uncomfortable, and why you approach situations in person very apprehensively. So imagine now we're all doing this, and have been for a while, virtually. Some people are like, forget it. I'm just going to go, sit behind my screen, turn off my video. I'm in la la land. This is fantastic for me. And we're going to talk about why that's a mistake, and how to shift that moving forward. So here we go. Let's talk about the top 7 tips for leveraging your network confidently today. Number 1, be authentic. And that seems so cheesy and may seem so, quote, simplistic, but it is so very true, right? Here's the thing. We do not need to copy someone else's method or copy someone else's actions in order to be successful. We can utilize those strategies. We can utilize those tips, but we have to quit trying to do things simply because it worked for someone else. You can stretch and grow, yes, but do it in a way that is authentic and genuine to you. Now, notice, I am not saying that being authentic means stay in your comfort zone. That is not what I'm saying at all. All right. You still want to stretch. You still want to grow. You want to challenge yourself in what it is you do. Okay. One of my favorite ones I'm thinking about with that is, way back when I was trying to go to the gym regularly, and I wanted to try out something new, as opposed to I like yoga or low impact type things. So I decided I was going to go to this Zumba class. I was all psyched and ready. And I got in there, and y'all, it was hilarious. I was just I was literally crying. I was laughing so hard at myself, because Zumba was not the thing for me, but I had a fantastic time. It was a great class, and I didn't do it again, but I challenged myself, and I stretched and explored it, and I learned something new. Okay. The same thing goes here when you're networking, when you're being yourself, when you're being genuine about how you're interacting with people. That is the best thing. That, especially right now, that is the piece that people connect with. All right. You want to move past all of that ickiness so that you can make things happen for real. When I was a baby lawyer and my first job out of law school, I was doing lobbying and attorney work. And so on the lobbying front, my responsibility was to go to all of the fundraisers, because, little man on a totem pole gets the icky job. So that meant that I had to show up at these happy hour, receptions and basically hand off the check to the political candidate. Hated it. I was like, you want to talk about sleazy and icky, but that was part of the job. And so I had to get over how I approached that. So what did I do? What I did was I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this a multi-purpose activity for me. My job requires that I show up at this event, glad hand, and hand over this check. I'm also going to enhance my responsibilities and what I do by going with a plan. So I would say, okay, if a person is there, I need to talk to them about this legislation we want to propose. So I'll try to reach out to them for that. If B person is there, I believe they just came back from a trip. And since I'm considering going on a similar trip, I would love to chit chat with them about that. And then number 3 may be, hey, there's this other person that I was trying to connect with, but I haven't had a chance. So I'll keep an eye out for them at this reception. That is literally how I made it through those fundraising receptions. Something that I personally detested, absolutely were required for my work, but I enhanced it so that I could know that I could get a benefit that furthered my networking skills, that furthered my job responsibilities and supported them, because I was utilizing that time beyond the obvious point of what it was there, but saying, okay, let me build forward on some other things that I needed to do. All right. All of this may require some vulnerability. That's a lot of things that's difficult. But here's the thing, with everything that's going on in the last year and a half, being authentic, being genuine, being vulnerable when you're engaging with people is okay. I'm not saying spill your guts, right? We all, again, that's all your comfort levels. But, when you first get on the phone or maybe on a Zoom call with someone you're meeting for the first time or you're following up, it's okay to say, hey, how things going? Because remember, right now today, we're sitting here doing this presentation virtually on Zoom because we are still in the midst of a global pandemic. So don't try to ignore the obvious. Acknowledge the fact that there may be kids on the other side of that door, that there may be animals running around helping. I have 2 teenagers who I am sure at any moment, one of them is going to come knocking on the door and ignore my do not disturb sign. So it's the reality of where we are right now. Be genuine, acknowledge it. And that is part of building the relationships that you need, and to do it confidently, so that that you have the confidence you need, because we're all human beings. Don't forget that. Okay, reflection time. So here's this reflection time. I want you to take time to think about and reflect on how you've actually been interacting with your network as it stands today, right? If at all. And that is okay. There's no judgment here. This is a judgment-free zone, because honesty is crucial at this point. If you want to grow and to make that career transition, find that new job, build a base to start that new business, honesty is truly the best policy here when it comes to what does your network look like right now, and how have you been nurturing it, if you have been nurturing it at all. Because if you don't acknowledge those things, strengths and weaknesses, that for the long term is going to impede your ability to act confidently moving forward. Because you're always going to have that little bit of guilt. You're going to have that, oh, I should have done. And then that's when you have missteps. That's when you don't follow up when you're supposed to, all of those things. So judgment-free, answer the question, and then let it go and say, okay, I've been doing great. Here's where I could do better. I haven't been doing really well. What do I need to do to change that moving forward? And then let's make that happen. Here's a host of questions for you to consider, right? When you're going through this and you're trying to figure out what it is I do next, here are the things you need to consider. so that you can do all of this in a very confident manner and you can engage in a much more assured manner. First, you have to know what your own needs are professionally and personally. Remember, my conversation with one of my colleagues, it normally starts off with a personal request or question rather than the professional one, right? Again, everyone has different boundaries and levels of comfort. Do that within where you are, but do it. Be willing to do it. Okay. You have to know what your needs are. Okay. What do you need? What do you want? And what do you want? Because a lot of times those are two different things. You need a job, but you want to be in X position at this company, right? Those can be two different things. Acknowledge that. You know, a lot of times our need is more baseline, whereas our want is really reaching for, maybe a little bit more of a stretch. It may require a little bit more work, whatever it might be. Okay. Then we get into the part of where we start connecting the dots. Where are the people in your network? What is it that they need and want personally and professionally? All right. How are they handling these things that are going on right now? How can you support them? Because when you start doing that, it's this mutuality and you get that energy and that flow going, and it actually helps you to interact in a much more confident manner. All right. Remember, we're talking about that authenticity, about how you approach and what you're willing to share so that you can interact. You know, that session that Kathy mentioned later on this afternoon is going to be a perfect opportunity for you to practice those skills. Okay. All right. We're moving on to tip number 2, which is be consistent. This may be one of the most difficult things to do, especially right now, because we feel out of whack, we feel out of rhythm and all of that. But here's the thing, you have to get yourself back into a rhythm, set the goal so that you can make things happen, right? I love doing challenges. I've hosted several 30-day consistency challenges, and I started them simply because I needed that. Right. I started them like 3 or 4 years ago because I needed it. And so I've expanded and I do them quarterly. And then I've expanded and I'm doing a networking 30-day challenge because people were like, I really need that support and that help. Okay. Here's the thing. Baby steps are very important. Do not overwhelm yourself. You know, it's truly the thought that matters. It's about taking action on that thought. Right. So when I transitioned from my regular 9 to 5, it was a C-suite thing, shifting out of that very political environment and started doing consulting almost 11 years ago now. I was like, what am I going to do? I'm out here on my own. And I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what to do. And so I literally just, sat down, made myself a list. It was extremely aggressive. It's not one that I recommend to other people unless they can follow through on it. But I was literally like, I'm going to meet 10 to 15 new people a week. I'm going to deliberately reach out to them. I'm going to schedule 2 to 3 coffees and or lunches per week. And I did that and I was not the most confident when I did it, but I knew that my need was I needed to remain visible in order to build my business, in order to make sure that people knew that I was still out there and available to do the legislative consulting work. So as I pivoted over the years, guess what I still did? The same thing. Right. And by this time, I've been doing it for years. So I even have to up level it and challenge it for myself. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looked like. But, fast forward to today, now we have Clubhouse, which did not exist, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, at 6 months ago, barely. And it's a whole new avenue and opportunity to engage with people in a different way. that is what I started doing. And I had to start being consistent. So what did I do is I put a little, a series of check boxes on my paper calendar. And every time I can, with a goal of attending a Clubhouse event or activity 5 times a week. And I would just literally check it off every time I did. Sometimes if I had enough time, I could be able to check off, 2 or 3 in one day because it worked out that way. But that was how I had to achieve that goal of being consistent on that new platform so that I could build up my confidence in interacting with it. Because the only way to get more confident is to do the thing. Right? And it doesn't have to be perfect, far from perfect. It's about being engaged and taking the action. All right. So whatever it is, show up regularly, set the pace for yourself and do the same thing, do the same place, whatever. Remember, baby steps. Okay, so here's a great quote from Beth Ramsey that all the time and effort put into networking can be all for naught if there's no follow through. The same goes, so the same goes for sales and leadership and everything. How true is that, right? If you don't follow up, if you don't follow through, you have wasted all of your energy. And none of us can get back lost time. But here's the thing, 5 minutes a day will build your confidence and your consistency in ways that you cannot imagine. And the benefits from it are almost immediate. All right. So those are things you can do, being consistent. Take that time, schedule it out, make sure you do it. Okay, tip number 3 is we want to be focused. You want to make sure you have targeted focus so that you can help, again, build out your confidence and your consistency. Don't be scattershot. When you're all over the place, that makes us feel insecure. We feel like you get into a scarcity mindset, and that sends you down this rabbit hole of things where like, oh, this is never going to happen. It's not going to work. Take a deep breath, step back, go back to that list, those questions that we asked where you said, okay, and we'll talk about a little bit more. I'm like, what is it that I want to do? How do I want to accomplish it? And do that thing. Even if it's one thing every day, start there. Keep that focus. The focus matters. And this is an easy place to get derailed, just like with consistency. But we have so many opportunities and so many things to support us, like Launchpad. We have our technology that can send us pings and reminders for any and everything. And so utilize those tools that are in your tool chest. Right? Use your calendar to set up reminders, connect with someone here to gain an accountability partner for what you're going to engage in, what it is you're going to do, and how often, right? There are so many ways that you can grow. All right, here we go. Tip number 4 is creating a networking strategy plan for you. Here's the thing. Notice that I said for you. This is not about what works for Patricia or what works for Kathy or what works for Shannon. This is about what's going to work for you. Now, may it be a little bit of something that I've taught you here? Absolutely. May it be something that you picked up and learned from Kathy during the course of this? Absolutely. But pull those things together, try them on, and then go with the ones that work for you, because you need to create a plan that works for you. Here are the questions. Who, what, when, why, and how? It really is that simple. Who are you going to try to connect with? What are you going to do it? When, why are you trying to connect with them, and how you're going to do it, right? And it seems so very simplistic. It's simple, but I didn't say it was easy because of those things about being consistent, about being focused. But when you take off all the extra and say, look, this is just about 5 questions, 5 things, Let me work through what that looks like for myself. Okay. Here you go. You can't wait until you need relationships to develop them. I have kept this quote in numerous presentations from Judy Robinette because it is so true. So true. The biggest fault that people engage in, and the reason why people feel slimy about networking, is they wait until they need something from someone to reach out to them. That is not the position that you want to be in. Does it happen occasionally? Sure, but it should not be the everyday occurrence. When you've built out your relationships, when you work through, creating a networking plan that works for you, and then you have built a foundation for being able to reach out to people, that you may not have talked to for several months or even some years, but you've built out a connection with them. This is not saying you're starting from scratch. Most of us have something in place that you can work from right now. We're talking about being more aware and being more focused with the network that you have so that you can build it out and strengthen it. When you have to approach someone that you haven't talked to in years and haven't even pretended to nurture, guess what? Absolutely, you're going to be really unsure of yourself when you reach out to them. And that lack of confidence will come through. Okay. But there are people in my network that I don't talk to on a regular basis, but we established such a sound foundation that I know that I can pick up the phone, I can send them an email or whatever, and reach out to them and be confident that they're going to return the call, that they're going to, get back to me. They're going to help me answer the question that I'm trying to get answered. That's where we want you to be. It is such a crucial mistake to wait until the last minute. Don't do it. One of my stories that I tell a lot is that there was a colleague that we were relatively close, I guess I should say. We had worked together in the same field, same area. And during a couple of transitions, we kind of would have regular coffee or lunch and all of that. And then something happened. I still to this day have no idea what, but just totally went cold. I would reach out, she wouldn't return. And I was like, okay, well, life happens, we transition, so we move on. And then months, a year or two later, out of the blue, I get this email from this person because they've now started this new venture of their own. And they're like, hey, how are you doing? Can you share this with your network for me? And I was like, really? I was just like, wow. And I did not respond to that because that is not how I operate. Okay. You don't get access to my network if you've not returned or continued to build out and nurture. So you want to think about that. Are you that person you're coming across to someone and they're like being hesitant? Is it because you're just trying to press them for something that you want without asking to address their needs and wants, without that give and return, knowing that that flow happens, right? You're just not going into it to see what you can take, but also what you can give. Key thing that I like to remind her, that's not this presentation, but that it's the basis for a lot of the work that I do when we're talking about authentic networking. Okay, so you've got this plan. So how are you going to personalize your plan? So that it can be a plan of action that's unique to you, so that you can move forward confidently with your next steps. You're going to look at who do you know? What are the organizations that you belong to? What are the organizations that your friends belong to? How are you, what are the groups or things that you belong to or that you want to belong to because it makes good business sense? Okay, those are some really important things to think about because you want to make sure that at every point, remember we talked about being authentic and genuine. Well, when you move into a space where there is a natural connection because of an interest, because of common projects or common themes or whatever, it helps you to be able to move into that space in a much more authentic, and from a space of being more comfortable. Now, like we always said, it's not about being comfortable, because at some point you're going to have to enter a space that makes you uncomfortable, but you can still do it confidently. These questions, answering these questions, will help lay that foundation. You can be able to be deliberate about what it is that you are doing. Okay. Heidi Krupp talks about that the most valuable tools when building and growing a business, and your greatest assets, are the relationships you've built over the years. You see, I'm driving home a point here. And so that piece that we just talked about when we were talking about those five places where you can work on developing your plan of action, that is where you really kind of dig in, right? What we're talking about here is not some, oh, I can go get that done in 15 minutes type of thing. Like, this is, if you really sit down and work through it, like, you've got some stuff that you can really dig deep on. Go back, look at organizations you've been a part of, people that you've known that maybe you hadn't spoken to a while, where you can go and reconnect, that may be able to help you where you are right now. It's those relationships down through time that will really help to sustain you over time. Okay? All right. Tip number 5 is reach out. And this is a two-parter. First, you got to make sure that you go. You got to act. You have to go do the thing. You have to make sure you're engaging. And oh my goodness, the thing that most people do not do is you must follow up. Most people's failure to get to the next level when they're trying to initially is because they don't do the follow-up. I have not checked in on the research recently, and I need to do that. But at one point in time, the research said that 95% of people do not follow up. So imagine if you're one of those 5%ers or less who actually follows up. This is not about being a nag, because this is when people are lacking in that confidence. They're like, well, I don't want to be a bother to anyone, and I don't want to nag them. It's not about that. It's about, you've reached out to someone, pinging them, putting it on your calendar, for 1 week, 2 weeks, a month later, to say, hey, I reached out to you. I was wondering, I hadn't heard back. I still would love to get together for coffee. I still would love to, to check out and talk about that project. Most of the times, and we let our ego get in the way, let's be honest, right? Because we're like, I can't believe they haven't followed, they haven't reacted to me, or they haven't responded to me, or we think, oh, there's something about me, they messed up. Let me tell you, the majority of the time when people haven't responded, it is literally for the most mundane reasons. Number 1, the email goes to spam. Number 2, they had a family emergency or crisis. Number 3, another technology, like, I've literally had people say, oh my gosh, your email was one of the ones that I almost lost because my laptop, my computer crashed and I didn't have access to it for a week. Like, that is a real situation that came to me at one point in time. So after I've learned these different things, I learned to just put it out there, let it go. And the reason why you can let it go is because, remember, you're being consistent and you are taking fresh action every day, every week, every month, so that you're creating this flow for people to feed back into you. So you don't have to hound or worry about nagging that one person, because you've got a whole list of people that you're reaching out to, and you're going to keep doing that to get the flow going, and so that you have someone to engage with, right? You want to make sure that you track over time. So here's another example from my Clubhouse experiences, right? Because I was not an early adopter for Clubhouse. I was like, I don't know about this. I joined because one of my friends, colleagues was like, this is a space you really need to be in for what you're doing. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll see. But so I blew it off. But then I decided, you know what, let me do a little bit more work. Let me see what can happen here. And when I started showing up on a regular basis, going with a plan, looking for the right groups, for the right people, and continuing to follow up, literally on my social media for Instagram, right? So I engage a lot on various social media platforms. On my Instagram, I literally have gained almost 200 new followers in less than 60 days. I do not do ads. Everything is organic. I don't connect with people just to be connecting. I'm very targeted. And I know that I'm connected with people who are in, because I'm being targeted about the rooms and the conversations I'm engaging in. So it's not just showing up in some off the wall topic room and putting it out there and then just having a bunch of people who I don't connect with or don't want to build relationships with showing up, right? This is what can happen when you get deliberate about the work that you're doing and build your confidence. So I'm way more confident about being on Clubhouse now. And now I've got to push my next step, and start hosting some things, hosting some conversations and making it work for me. Okay. The second part of reaching out is about strengthening and maintaining those relationships. We've been talking about this all along, and it summarizes it here. Call before you need something. Reach out to people before you need things specifically, right? Sometimes we already talked about it. Sometimes you're like, man, I'm about to have to reach out to them because this job is there. Guess what? It's okay. But just say, hey, I know we haven't talked in a minute. I hope things are well. How are things going for you? Like, take the opportunity to, number one, acknowledge that you have slacked. And number two, that you are going to acknowledge where they are right now in their time and space before you ask them for that lift that may be heavy or not, or that next connection. All right. Be respectful of people. Tier your contacts. This is that thing where you may not be reaching out to the same person every day, every week, every month. You kind of get a flow. You're already probably doing this without even realizing it, is that there are certain people that you reach out to, once a month, once every 3 months, once or twice a year, and that really happens. I am still in contact with my my college mentor from 30 years ago. We do not talk regularly. We talk literally on the phone or in person once or twice a year. So if I happen to be in DC, I'll reach out to her. If she's here back in Texas, she'll reach out to me. But we stay connected. We stay connected through LinkedIn. And I know she's watching me because she'll show up in my feed, she'll comment, or she may, show she's following something that I put out there. And then every once in a while, excuse me, I'll send a message. Hey, I saw how things going, everything okay? Let me know if you need anything. 30 years, you all. We didn't start there. When we started there, I was a law student. Actually before then, because I was her intern when she worked for Governor Richards, and she was showing me around the ropes, helping me to get to know a whole bunch of people. And then I went off to law school and literally I was like, oh my gosh, I need a job. I hate to do this. And I called her and she was like, hold on, give me a call back in 24 hours. I did that. And she's like, when you get back to town, here's who you need to meet with. And literally everything that I've done since that point, I can point back a clear line to that call when I called for help and then connected. And then and down through the years, guess what? She's had transitions where she's like, hey, it's time for me to ask you for some help. And it's gone back and forth. So your relationships mature and they shift, but it doesn't mean that they lessen. as long as you nurture them appropriately. You want to make sure that you share, period. You got to share. It's a scarcity mindset to say, well, I don't want to share that with that person because what if they go through with it? But what if they share with you? Because if you're sharing and engaging mutually, then guess what? More than likely, you're both going to end up with something that's beneficial to the both of you. So do not let a scarcity mindset take over and drive the bus right now. It's very tempting, but it's not helpful. It will actually slow you down. Be creative in how you reach out. I know this seems odd. We'll talk about it next. So let's just go on here. Tip number 6 is you want to leverage your technology. And yes, I put a good old-fashioned phone on there because with everything that's going on, people are zoomed out, even though Zoom is clearly, a key technology of choice in order to connect with people. I have hosted coffee chats. I've done connect calls via Zoom because people crave interaction. People crave connection. All right. So do that thing. Things have let up some. So if you're having some people who are comfortable with meeting in person, then do that. Make sure you have a clear understanding of people's boundaries so that you can interact. I've already done a meeting facilitation in person, came very quickly last month. I'm meeting for lunch with the person who helped me set that up. I'm meeting for lunch with her in person at the end of this month. This is that kind of building, continued connecting. All right. Pick up the phone. Our phones really work for talking to people. It may seem old-fashioned, but it's still a relevant and very obvious way to be able to connect. Best things, go sit out on your deck, go to the park, make a phone call, get some fresh air at the same time. You're killing two birds with one stone there. Slack is a newer tool for me, right? It's one that I've come to use because of some networking groups that I'm a part of and some consulting projects I was a part of. So they use Slack. So I use it, I engage with it to interact with those people. It's not something that's a natural fit for me, but I have taken taken it in as part of the reality of things that are opportunities. And if sometimes I've been able to connect with someone through Slack that I haven't been able to connect with them through when I send an email or through other social media things because everybody's bombarded. So utilize all of your technology. And some of my personal favorites are just flat out journaling. I still keep a networking journal. I'm actually in the process of creating one to share with people. That's what's tided me over for the last 11 plus years specifically. I was using some of these techniques long before, but I literally still utilize that. So very tactile. And my personal favorite, which are handwritten notes, right? That I love. There's nothing that I love better than a good old fashioned handwritten note, especially as people are getting back in their offices. So I now know where to mail them, but it may take a little bit of effort, extra effort, but it was well worth it. Tip number 7 is leveraging your social media. I already started hinting at this. I've been talking about Clubhouse, which is my latest venture, and trying to, just kind of getting out there, connecting up with people, using that platform. LinkedIn, I'm going to assume everybody here is on LinkedIn because I know Kathy and Shannon are hounded home. So LinkedIn, I have been a LinkedIn user since the platform first started. So it's really hilarious to me that now it's the hottest thing since sliced bread, but I continue to use it down through the years and are even shifting in how I use it. Facebook is much more social, but here's the thing. Over the years, some of my colleagues, especially like my lawyer friends and other people that I've come to know through my consulting business, well, we then start sharing and connecting on Facebook. So that's still another way to connect with people, interact with them in a much more personal way, that again, it still counts as connecting with them. And then I've also talked about Instagram and how I utilize it and how you can utilize it as well. Use the platform that works best for you. Start with one and use it. A lot of times people jump around because they're like, oh, but that's not working. You haven't stuck with it long enough. You're not actually utilizing it to the best of its ability. If you get on one platform and really dive deep into what it has to offer, let's just say LinkedIn, you may not need anything else right now, right? Be consistent, be focused, dive in, and use all of your tools. Okay, here's the thing. Networking is here to stay. Whether we realize it or not, networking is part and parcel of everyone's life. Our concentric circles of relationships from business, the ball field, church, and school impact our lives. What we choose to do with them is up to us. All right. So make sure that you utilize the tools that are in front of you, utilize the resources, dive deep. That consistent action is what will build your confidence as you focus in on what it is you need to do, whether it's attending workshops online, attending conferences online, all of those things. Make a decision, make a commitment, and then do the thing. That is it. It's question and answer time. Kathy or Shannon? Yes, ma'am.
We had some people who said, can you give a little bit more explanation about Clubhouse? What is that?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Clubhouse is the newest, hottest social media app. And it started out only available on iPhones, but this spring, a couple of months ago, actually expanded to what's the other one? I just went blank on the name.
Android.
Thank you. iPhone user here, but expanded to Android. And so basically people from all over the world, y'all, that's what's so fascinating about it. It's not just in the US. There are people interacting all over the world. So basically it's kind of like talk radio meets your social app, where you can go in, you can join, ask people. I think it used to be invite only, but you meet up with people who have invites and they invite you in. But it allows you to engage with people. You can go in and listen. They're sharing all types of content, from career coaching to the film industry. I mean, just a whole world of things. Just do a quick Google of Clubhouse. It may not be for everyone. You don't have to actually be the one to, quote, get on stage and talk. You can go into these rooms, that's how they define them, and listen and gather a lot of information about people, or information about an industry, all types of things. I've gone in as a presenter and as someone to learn, right? And so it's really great. And I've made some great new connections with people I would not have otherwise been able to, because they don't live here in Austin. They don't live close, or I'm not traveling, to Canada or whatever. So it's really a great opportunity to learn about new industries, about new things. And it's not all business. It's personal things, it's business things, it's a wide variety. So, if you're one of those who's curious and want to explore something new, I encourage you to go check it out.
Okay, so somebody originally said that you have to be invited by a current member, and then she put down the URL that just says www.joinclubhouse.com. So if you just try to join, then how do you still need? You said you have to find somebody to nominate you.
So, and it's just a connection. So a lot of times what it do, because of course, scary technology, it will show you people who and you can reach out to someone you know and say, hey, do you have a Clubhouse invite? And they literally just, you join by, sharing, they invite you using your phone number and share an invite. Okay. And so like I said, I haven't, because I've been in for a while, and I extend invitations every once in a while when someone says, hey, I don't excuse me, I would love to get in, but I don't have an invite. Or like if I have a client, then I'm like, hey, I think this is good for you, so I'll give them one of my invites. But it's easier than it used to be, and it's because there's so many people now, especially now that if you have a phone, it'll help you identify who in your network, who people that that are already a part of it. And so you just reach out and say, hey, do you have, I'm trying to explore Clubhouse. Do you have an invite that you can share with me?
And then once you get into it, is there a way that you can do searches for different topics or things like that?
Yes. Yeah, so they have a quote hallway, and that's when you're walking down the hallway in their rooms, and there is a new search. It's like literally growing continuously. I mean, it's only existed since late last fall. I think it's like October or something like that. I mean, so it's just expanding by leaps and bounds. But yeah, you can type in topics because there are clubs. You can join clubs. You can go and wander into rooms, unless it's a closed room or whatever, but you can wander in rooms and just listen to the conversation. But you can type in things so I do it all the time just to kind of see. I'll type in professional development, I'll type in networking, I'll type in leadership, and I'll go look and see what new things are out there where people are hosting rooms or creating rooms, and I'll go take a peek at them. It gives you a function where if there's something that you like, you can either ask to join the club, or you can click when certain people are always talking. So sometimes I may follow a person. It may not be the club or the room that I want to follow, but I want to follow that person because they give really good content. Right. So I have some people that I do that with. I'm thinking about a couple of other coaches who are really good. So, I get pinged when they're speaking in any group. So even if it's a group that I'm not following personally, because I'm following that person, it'll give me notice, and I can go listen in on what the conversation is about. And learn new things and new people. I follow some things just for fun. Like, I'm a scrapbooker, and I found a lovely group of Black women who do create journals. I never would have found or even known something like that existed if it wasn't for this app. So personal or professional, there are lots of things to